So I'm probably going to keep this video relatively short because I'm already anticipating a lot of hate that I'll get for this one. Maybe, maybe not. I want to talk about Fire Emblem Engage. I finally beat the game, and yes, I took my sweet time playing it. I clocked in at about 62 hours. Historically speaking, Fire Emblem has been my favorite Nintendo asset. Now, that changed about 5 years ago when it became Legend of Zelda, but I've always had this special place for Fire Emblem because I felt like Nintendo sort of went too cutesy with everything and there wasn't enough, I don't know, just hardcore gaming aspect to them, and the only place that you could really find that in Nintendo was Fire Emblem. Now again, that's an antiquated thought and obviously doesn't exist with me today. Although that doesn't change my love for Fire Emblem. Three Houses was an amazing game that I enjoyed every second of and honestly didn't want to beat. With Fire Emblem Engage, I was counting down the time until I could beat it. In fact, I looked up online to see how many chapters it was, and when I learned, I was 6 chapters away, my heart kind of sunk. I was like, oh, I gotta keep going. And yes, there's some very interesting things that happen, specifically like chapter 22 and 24. They definitely have some interesting stuff that happens, but if I'm being honest, most of it was telegraphed. The whole story was rather predictable, and honestly, if you're really good at deciphering things, you can just look at the cover of this game and pretty much figure it out. Now, I gotta be honest, the story is not why I wanted to play this game. No, in fact, it had that tactics RPG combat style that I really love. It gives you a lot of room for strategy, it lets you build your team, you develop characters, kind of build them how you want them to be, and to really make a powerhouse. And that's what I really enjoy about the game. And thankfully, that's all still here. In fact, it's probably even done up a little bit better. Because of the addition of the emblems, it really adds another layer of depth to the characters and to your strategy in general. All of that was really good, and things that I really appreciated about the game. And I have to say, graphically, the game looked amazing. I really dug the art style that they did with this one. It's almost like cel-shaded yet pronounced. I don't know how to explain it. It is very unique, but also really detailed and just really bright and colorful. I really like the art style. Love the graphics of this game. So what is it that I don't like about the game? Well, honestly, it kind of falls in line with a lot of other games and a lot of RPGs that we've seen recently, where you have this core team and you like this core team. You're working with them, you get new characters here and there, and you kind of build them into your team, but sooner or later, they're replaced by other characters who end up having an ability to change into a different class that ultimately makes them superior. So there's really no point to keep your original characters with you anymore. And this happens a lot. In fact, you could predict how this was all going to play out as you're playing the game. I'm not going to completely ruin any storyline for you, but I will just say that, enemies become friends really easy in this game, and they end up being way more powerful than your original team, even though your original team beat them. But ultimately, it's about limitations and how far those characters can grow, and the classes that they can change into. Now, not all of the characters are stuck in this position, and yes, some of the core characters, or some of what they call like the side characters, can in fact improve quite dramatically, and you can work around it, but it's going to take you more and more time. So if you're not really that vested into that character, you may not want to do all these extra tasks in which to level up this character just so that they're formidable and so they're in line with everyone else. Not to mention the grinding and how much time that's going to take. Now, I've said it before too that I think that I'm missing some of it because I didn't play a lot of them. I played some of these games, but not all of them, and so most of the emblems I didn't really recognize, and so doing their side quests and learning more about them didn't really mean anything to me. I didn't really care. It just seemed like another task I had to do, and in which, it helps you level up, and you do get to learn a little bit about these characters, but ultimately, I think it was meant for nostalgia, and I just don't have that with those characters. Now, yes, some of the ones that I do remember, of course I've got the nostalgia, and of course I enjoyed that, but this being one of the only forms of side quests in the game kind of also sucked. Yes, you got to get a max bond with your emblem, and you get to learn a little bit more about them, and of course, when you are able to bond with them and max that out, yes, there's also benefits to that as well. But if I'm being honest, they're really difficult. And they didn't seem like side quests as much as they just seemed like a different mode or a different game style. Even though it's the same mechanics and everything else, it just didn't really seem to fit with the story, I should say. And it really felt like a way for them to maybe squeeze a little bit more money out of the game by adding new characters and new quests, but none of them actually adding any depth to the story or to the game itself. More just, hey, here's a new character in the, like a Smash Bros type money venture there. It was fine, and for me, purchasing DLC or purchasing extra characters, even though there was a few that looked really interesting, and definitely ones I remembered, it also kind of was pointless because by the time you actually got to use them and everything, you're pretty much done with the game. There's probably going to be an expansion pass, I hope, but the game doesn't really end in a way that would be receptive to a DLC. Aside from me just kind of nitpicking, what is my big problem with the game? And honestly, I have to come back and say, I think it's just the fact that the environment is the problem. And I don't mean the environment in the game, I mean the gaming environment right now. There's so many other really good RPGs out there. If this game came out, let's say in July or August, and there wasn't a lot out, then yeah, I think this game would be a lot better received, at least by me. Because even though I try not to compare it to other games, I have to in a lot of ways. Because I'm playing those other games while I'm still playing Fire Emblem Engage, and I'm really focused on, okay, what game really feels like a chore and which ones make me really want to go back and play them. And Fire Emblem Engage is just one of those games that I just felt like was a slog. It was slow moving, the story was very predictable, and there wasn't much depth behind any of the characters. It was very face value, if that makes sense. And I don't know. I feel like this game was almost rushed in a way. It does tell a story, and it's a decent story, but not one that is overly interesting, if I'm being honest. And one that, when I compare it to past Fire Emblem stories and characters and development and build-up, there's just not a lot here. Yes, there's some characters who are really awesome, and I really enjoyed them. Namely, the prince and princess in the desert area. I forgot their name off the top of my head. But they were really cool, but not anyone else was really different or added much to a game. But at the end of the day, it is still a Fire Emblem game. It is still true to the Fire Emblem formula that got us to love Fire Emblem. And maybe it wasn't the strongest showing in terms of story or character design, or I should say character development, because I think character design is actually really strong in this game, just not the development. I just didn't really experience much depth with this game. And when I do compare it to the likes of Octopath Traveler 2, Persona 4, it's just ultimately not as good as those other games. And so I have to say that it's with a heavy heart, by the way, that I have to rate this game a 6 out of 10. It's fine. It's a decent, well-made Fire Emblem game, but it's just a mid, honestly. But that's my thoughts on Fire Emblem Engage. Let me know if you guys have played it, what your thoughts are on it, if you plan on picking it up, or anything and everything. Comment section below. I love you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.